awkward. I had a big mouth and I talked a big game, but I got real nervous around girls. So, but my first date, I was 13 years old, believe it or not. And I went, it's a long story, but I'll tell you the short part. My classes have heard it. I went, we were going to walk to Yesterdog. I was going to walk to Yesterdog with this girl, and we were going to go for lunch, and it started raining really bad. So I went down in the basement. I asked my dad, and told him, this girl and I were going to go to Yesterdog and walk, but it's raining really bad, thinking that he would maybe offer to take us. Well, being the fifth of 5 kids, my dad forgot how old I was and said, "Can you be back by 2:00?" and flipped me the keys to the station wagon. So I said, "Sure, I can be back by 2:00. I walked back upstairs, told the girl that we're going to Yesterdog and I'm driving, and I'm 13, but parked it on Wealthy Street, went in, had lunch, came back home, and gave my dad the keys. He never knew. He'd forgotten how old I was or which kid I was. I don't know.
You remember?
Oh, it was my first date ever. And I didn't want to go, but didn't know how to say no. And we first went out to dinner, which was fine. Only I ate way more than him, so I felt weird. And then he took me to I don't even know what they're called, a place where you play video games. And I watched him play video games.
What was your very first date that you went?
My goodness. I guess it depends on what you call dating. When I was in 8th grade, I remember biking to this girl's house that I was in youth group with. And I remember just having this crush on her. And we watched some show. It was actually this lame like soap opera called Santa Barbara. And go figure, I ended up going to school in Santa Barbara later, not dating this girl or anything. But I remember biking to her house. We watched this show, Santa Barbara.
An arcade?
Yes, that's what they're called. And I hate video games. So yeah, it wasn't great.
Nice. And
We never went out.
And afterwards, I remember like standing there looking at her like, what do I do now when I say goodbye? Like, do I kiss this girl? Do we just kind of bike home and do this again tomorrow and hang out with my friends and then see this girl that I'm dating? Like, I didn't know what it was even like. So that was probably my first date, if you want to call it, but there was no real date involved, It was called Summer Bike Ride to the girl I liked's house,
Great. Did you ever ask your dad about that, like later in life, or not?
No, I never did. I told my mom about it later, but she just shook her head. But I thought I was King Daddy. Are you kidding me? I'm driving a car. I'm 13. I even put money in the meter like I knew what I was doing. Parked it right on Wealthy Street. Surprised that girl didn't want to go out with me again.
Yeah.
Wow, that's taking me back a little bit. I think I'd say my very, very first official was probably a double date. I think a friend and I think we got up the courage to ask 2 really good friends. Him and I were good friends, and they were good friends. And I think the baton was passed to me to go first. And so very, very awkward, even though I felt like, wow, this is easy. I'm the popular guy, shouldn't have no problems doing this. But you know how it is. You're taking that step out of your comfort zone that you hadn't been in. There was no real manual to follow. You're trying to get all this insight and all this advice from friends. And, of course, they didn't know either. So
date. And what was it like? What did you do?
Okay.
Was it awkward? Or what awkward moments came out of that?
Yeah. So I remember I wasn't allowed to date until I was 16. But my probably early sophomore year, a senior boy asked me out and I really wanted to go. So I was spending the night at a friend's house, and this is a really bad thing too. I can't believe we did this.
Put together this nice note, and then during class, between classes, you would slide this note to a pretty young girl, and then you wait for a response, and then she'd send you a note back. And so that was one of our lines of communication. Obviously, there was no texting, there was no social media, so you were just hoping and saying, man, I hope she gets back to me, and I hope she says yes. So it was awkward because it wasn't verbalized. It was more, let me put these feelings and this question on paper. So she said yes, and then my friend had her friend, she said yes. And so back then it was really kind of cool. Back then it was Studio 28. And so we happened to go to a movie. And so that was a big thing for us back then.
Oh yeah. Do you remember what was your first date? What was it like? What did you do? You know, who'd you go out with? All that stuff.
Yeah, I remember my first day. I was a freshman in high school, and I went on to a movie with a guy who was a junior. Yeah, I know. And I don't even remember what movie we watched or went to.
This is a really bad thing too. I can't believe we did this. We made signs at school, like a flyer for her church youth group saying that we were going broomballing with the church. So I brought the flyer home, made copies at school, gave the flyer to my mom. I'm like, oh, spending the night here. Look, we're going broomballing. And she's like, that's great, Amy. And we definitely went on a double date, and it was awkward.
That is awesome. You're gonna give kids bad ideas here.
I know.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. It was, it was still a little awkward because looking back, it's like, why do we choose Studio 28? Because there's no real interaction. We're just gonna be sitting there watching movies. And then you weren't sure, should I say something? Should I grab her hand? Is that too much on the first date? So it was really awkward, but obviously you learn and you grow from those experiences when you look back and you reflect like, wow, I wasn't very cool back then. I wasn't as cool as I thought I was.
I remember the awkward times were when he picked me up. All of my siblings were like standing at the window watching out as he picked me as I went out onto the porch. And then when he dropped me off, it was the exact same. Everybody in my family was staring out the window as he dropped me off.
Oh, your family at the window. That's a great piece of the story there.
I know, it was humiliating.
What dating advice would you give to students?
Oh man, well, it's so different now. Now it's like they get together in groups and then they're going out, or you have the social media thing, and you don't have to have the terrible nerves when you dial a phone number and if you're going to hit that last number or not, and have to talk to her without seeing her face.
And I guess whatever you want to call talking, or whatever you want to call getting to know someone, I think that's the best advice I would say is, don't just ask this girl to the dance. Don't just, ask this girl out because you kind of are infatuated, or this guy or whoever you're talking about in your dating life. But I think spending some significant time around your friends, getting to know the things that they love, basically just being good friends with someone.
I think that my advice would be to be yourself. I think that if it's somebody that you want to date someone who's going to like you for who you are, and they are going to embrace exactly who you are and you at your most confident point. And I think that you want to spend time with somebody who you can be confident with, who makes you feel good about yourself, and who makes you feel important and valued.
So I guess getting to know someone incredibly well and not just dating a ton of people. I had a grandfather years ago, he said, son, play the field, date everybody. And I thought that just never made good sense to me. And I think it rips at your heart the more you invest in multiple people without really getting to know them. And I would say I'd want to guard my heart a little bit more than that. So that's my advice for my own girls. That's my advice for my students. So
I would say, keep your options open. Don't feel like you have to settle down if you're not ready to. I think a lot of people, feel that pressure, like they need a boyfriend or a girlfriend, to, make them feel better about themselves. But I would say, just keep your options open as long as you can, find what you really like in someone. Don't feel like you have to just settle or, be stuck with the same person.
Why?
But I think the dating advice I would give is, first of all, and this is probably cliche, but get along with the person. Make sure that you get along with them. I mean, don't date somebody that you don't know if they're good looking or whatever, that's great. But if you don't get along with them, it's not going to be very much fun. You got to make sure that you have fun with this person.